society, when one of the organization them we put out this concern and then been signed them. So it talk on behalf of the Balance 8 civil society organization them we come and put together this particular statement. Good morning, Mr. Mara.
Good morning, Khadija. Good morning, Mabel.
All right, we still say on a come together as civil society groups, and the civil society wing now one way many people be on the question recently say they don't go quiet and they're supposed for be the watchdog of the states and for the call outs the ills of the government and self the opposition. But that's not only happening. People on the question all of a sudden on a 9 emerge. Before we talk about the issues, we wanna talk about the press release, the emergence of the 9 civil society group and a wake up to the civil society wing.
I mean, personally, I'm curious if civil society to a midwife. So, what in a midwife they do it, especially pregnancy or a pregnant woman, for guidance through the process, help them for them deliver safely, and after it don't be delivered, also help them for mentally picking. So that's essentially the role where civil society they play, and don't play with democracy. Like you always say, the peace and democracy we they enjoy, they enjoy them because we get strong civil society actors. Na salon, maybe make sure say them in team up, especially the demand for elections, even with the war being a rage, So then civil society then they produce a return to democracy. And that democracy now they enjoy till now. But with democracy still young. So civil society now that midwife where they help for also take care of this democracy where we compatriots them lost their lives them and people and destinies them being altered fundamentally. So to answer your question, I think there was a need for less civil society groups them. We understand governance, we understand waiting na perhaps the consequence of not staying true to this democracy that was fought for and defended by blood, limbs, tears, etc., etc. So then civil society, we realize anytime we hear the drums of war, we're worried because war not the peak. And so we can get with fierce disagreements, whether we go for Bilunge Bridge or not, we can get them. But once we hear politicians they talk about now, but the military, if this not happen, blah blah blah, we will make this place ungovernable. Then people will understand democracy. We understand all them pillars where they keep democracy together. We say no, we for come together. I mean, it's a loose. I would not call it coalition, but a number of groups that we come together and they identify with the fact that war or rumors of war should not be part of our conversation. We can consider we disagree whether President Bio they do so well for health or whether President Bio they do well in the fight against corruption. But once we are politicians, they talk about the military, they talk about war, they talk about the place being ungovernable, then we know now that no, we all know for Sidom and allow the rhetorics here for be amplified. That is why we came together, we identified with that in that statement, and we put them out clearly. So we condemn both sides unequivocally.
Now that we don't put out this statement, and the relevant people don't wanna call out inside the statements, Nabatilo Songa, the chairman for the SLPP, and the opposition whip na parliament when Honorable AKK. But yet still the conversation still they go on. It's like now a decision where the party don't take. Case that we hold a conversation from the parliamentary angle. According to the APC rep na the studio, Honorable Lako, They say na react, then they react to waiting the SLPP they say to them. And when you look at all the conversation at the media right now, it's like tension they rise. Whose impact on I feel say this statement on I don't pull, also on I call both parties out to go make to them.
I think this will not be a one-off, because sadly, if it be a one-off, then we know they play a role very fiercely. And I hope that these organizations we identify in this statement will continue for play that critical role in our democracy. Because, like you say now, decision at party level, they don't take, say, this is how these conversations will be had. It means say the opposition say go take a statement, say, would go pound for pound, toe for toe. So equally so, civil society, the way we know, say, over time, don't build credibility on standing for truth and democracy. We also for ensure, say, we not left that space there now. Because, and I agree with you that for so long a time, the role where civil society then play in the reconstruction, post-war reconstruction, sadly, in the last 10 years, we not don't see them. And then pitifully, in the last 5 to 7 years, that space they effectively empty, or other bad voices them don't occupy them. And I can always say, once you leave a vacuum, other people in the can occupy. If you left that space there, you credible civil society, they are the buyers of this world, where their own messages they laced with all invectives, then go take that space there. So now that make credible civil society, they're not for left this space. And I hope that going forward, we would continue to be aligned on things that matter for a democracy. And it not will be once off. Because if the political parties they don't take a stance in that, so then go continue for engage. The ruling party don't take a stance in and so then go continue for engage. Opposition self say we would also throw the fire back. Then civil society here for calm, because now we they tread that middle path between the one the way they govern and the one the way normally they call them a government in waiting, right? So we want for ensure say we governance conversations not be dominated by war drumming or rhetorics about war.
That brings me to the question of the owner of the civil society organization have been see this coming, taking into consideration how far the nation don't come, the 11 years rebel war, the experience with the country and people and go through up to this time. Even for move forward in terms of seeing them way government supposed to do for people. People are still complaining. Then when they get that kind of conversation here leading to elections. Yeah. Have been foresee this?
I think maybe, to be honest, I think somehow, somewhat, we therefore accept, say, that space they serve, some civil society actors, they may quit that space. We have to be honest. Because believe you me, if they may occupy that space they, as robustly as our civil society post the war being the function, politicians enough don't get a field day. But especially in the last 7 years, and I have to be honest on this, when the SLPP party came into power, a number of things had not happened where, looking back, civil society therefore don't stand up more and more. Critical things had not happened, right? Things where, for example, the census, the manner in which it was carried out, Lara Taylor Pierce, the manner in which it was done, the 10 politicians, MPs then at parliament, the manner in which it was done. And I feel like once, and waiting they happen with bad governance, once it happen one time, there is an appetite for letting repeat them. And waiting bad governance actors elect na silence. Waiting elect na inaction. Waiting elect na division. So waiting they happen, they begin pit civil society against each other. So one civil society look at the other, say, oh, this one pro-regime, this one pro-opposition, right? So that inability, therefore, let we function as a unit, knowing that the only enemy who gets a bad governance, not to we safe, we took our eyes off the ball. So they may have been on get this field day and they not become emboldened. But then say better late than never. So we self don't realize, say, we need to do we self good if we sit down, they begin to throw accusations and counter accusations. So don't get to a point that we realize, say, no, if we agree on a set minimum, we can come together and then speak on the core minimums and they. So that make way one party civil society organization, ILRAJ specifically, initiates that drafting and call around civil society groups. It be easy for us to say, no, we can disagree in terms of how much allocation or whether the free education get quality. We can disagree on that one day, but we all align on the fact that however the conversations are, we should not accommodate war or rumors of war.
The political division is visible in so many institutions as it is.
Absolutely.
And this is a concern we want to get about the neutrality of security forces and also protecting democracy, ensuring, say, in as much as the country they go into elections in 2 year, 3 year time, not enough for doing two particular institutions here. Let we look at the issue of politics, the one that we on the call. Are they willing, by the things that they say and do, they feel like they seem ready for work with for ensure, say, this call they make achieve goal?
You know what in them call here fine? Because many times people in Kisidon, they want to do the right thing, but they feel alone. So once you get credible organization come forward, they remind them of waiting them for do right, then self would go back to the drawing board and realize, say no, then they watch wheel. So if we not do what is right, the organizations here would later hold us to account. Remember, say, after all the atrocities of the war, they may bring forward those who bore the greatest responsibility. And military people they understand what they call command responsibility. So some man they go back and say, when something happen, not to that junior officer where they pull the trigger, then they call oh. Now the one way sit on a situation room, right? So this call here important because many a time, and I tell you why, because even in 2018, rumors were that at some point, even ECSL, number one for do right. But because of the posture of the civil society groups, then international partners, they realize, you know, if we not do this now, it'll be chaotic. And if that chaos they happen, now we will superintend elections and we don't get for call out. So it's important that then conversations, then statements here be made by credible civil society groups so that the one the way they think self say they want be aligned with them, really awful rhetorics here, go be reminded, say them people and they then continue for dinner this space, right? Even if they may not depart for a while now, but we're coming back together with greater force. And as a midwife, for say this baby will be delivered. You know, strong ghetto, we don't can out for come maintain for ensure say we rob we madoni pana, let him up strong. Because we left her to the Cobra, but I feel like the Cobra no they take care of her. So we have come back to say civil society will get a critical role for play for call out all the leaders them clearly. And why make this statement very important? Just in case, God forbid, anything happen, they would go back to the records and say, oh, your name was mentioned in this release. So you know go act safe for let them bring greatest responsibility allegation against you.
APC and SLPP not same for the see waiting and they do or the utterances where they also they make against themselves as serious as owner, for example, don't take them. Why people for treat the issues here when they come up at this stage very seriously?
I think it's serious because always you get a history. Somebody way don't go through civil conflict, you know, ask for reminder, you know, but the dangers of all waiting they happen. And I think that the thing with bad governance they do, obviously, I mean, bad politicians and then they create bad governance, right? So their own appetite now for just for promoting political interest, right? But the fact of the matter is, the ruling party in Indian governments now then get a greater responsibility for keep the peace, right? So it's unfortunate for Lewi Yei, somebody when a chairman of a ruling party for make the unfortunate statement. Although somebody say, a good friend of mine, say, oh, the Secretary General don't set the record straight, say, no to Dan the chairman me. No. In communication, we not get for please you mind for ask you what you mean. We they take you words and we piece them together. How we receive them, now so we they construct your intention. Right? So if you say something where quite clearly, to madman, we understanding that now this you mean. So even if somebody come and say, no, to this you mean, like what say we put together? And a simple and clear meaning of them words and they means it incites the military in a democratic system, which is not correct, which is not fair. And I think the SLPP, where them essentially where the first multi-party democracy happened in 1996, and then fortunate for coming to power, they have a greater responsibility for not just keep the peace, but for ensure say anything with people like armed conflict or military intervention should be kept out of our governance system. It's unfortunate that this party will suffer in the hands of the military interregnum in 1997, one for encourage conversations like that. And for me, I think say they get the greater responsibility than the opposition, because the opposition of the governance, and the opposition, you would say, might be reacting to what was said, right? So the SLPP party within governance then gets a greater responsibility because the peace and security they are there.
Augustine, now the release way on a pool on a concern about Sierra Leone peace and democracy. Absolutely. And on a go again for remind them political actor there of waiting be happen during the Absolutely. Civil War and waiting the TRC reports be recommend. Absolutely. A surprise on for hearing some of their statements there, so from people that were all senior position at political parties as a time like now, where elections, for me, I can say it is far forth because 2028 is about 2 to 3 years and we still get a sitting president. But when you look at the conversation now between the two political parties, them, it just feel like ECSL don't declare election dates.
No, I think, Khadija, let's be honest. The last election in 2023, we had a situation where we get beaucoup unfinished businesses at the election day. And the fact of the matter is, once you get unfinished businesses, people and they will go carry that perhaps indignation, when anger. Quite clearly, the opposition may feel say the process was not transparent, but not just.
For the layman.
Let's be clear. I mean, me not to pass away one for talk corner. I went to the Supreme Court, filed papers, and say ECSL and get a responsibility for ensure free and fair elections. Fair elections meaning if you declare a certain result, you for able to produce disaggregated data for everybody see how that data they be add up. To date, as we talk, ECSL not produce one shred of that disaggregated data day. So, and why make that one day important? And forget about the fact that they're not even being yield to demands for let them project their results and the collation. When important, because you want in a system where somebody lost election, where we all see on the scoreboard. So at the end of the day, if you want cause any issue, raise any issue, we'll all turn back to him and say, no, we saw it on the screen, you lost this election. But the opposition may think, say, then disaggregated data, then they not release them because the results were them announced not go tally with the disaggregated data. It means that they go carry in them that anger they say unfinished business system in 2023. Now it make the election cycle not break. Now it make you the one that say, why is so early? Because as far as the opposition on other groups, concern 2023, we're not even done with it. So that cycle, now not feed into the next election. So effectively, it feels like the next election are tomorrow. Because as far as people are concerned, that one day continue for linger in our minds. Right? And I tell you what, it not come as a surprise to them 9 organizations here. Because the things that we don't undermine with democracy, they don't become far too numerous. And waiting they happen, now when the issues here don't boku, then they begin for infiltrate all institutions. Maybe I'll talk about how almost all institutions now don't so become highly politicized. Right? So the danger is that politicians and now they begin for stoke them flames them within the institutions rather than focus on development. Right? And I'm not saying we can sit down and lament the situation. Quite clearly, civil society groups are all maybe complicit in what happened. To be honest, to the people of Sierra Leone. But we can't say now because something is not go so bad, we can't come together to say, okay, let me address them, however late. Right? So now that make now we understand the need for we speak up as a unit, as a group, as a united force. Because then say the house were divided against itself, not going to team up. We realize say we all the organizations them they do well in their own measure, right? Forget about the degree. But we realize say we all come together today and 9. So until the next issues that what they take on might be 15, might be 25, might be 50 groups, right? Waiting under the show now politicians and that no. This field they will we not get for so long. The civil society actors are saying we are not going to let it anymore.
Let me look at the other regulatory body them because then political party get several regulatory body them where they regulate them like the PPRC and other groups then they will normally can add to una your work on they do as civil society then can consider them as eminence group. You think it's high time for all them body there come up now like how una self as civil society groups you say una see the need for begin put caution to them people there.
Khadija, to be honest, I don't think so if I don't get this conversation. If the first very moment with that statement, Batilo Songa released that statement, if PPIC, when are the regulatory entity, being immediately, not just put out a statement, slam a fine, because they get powers for fine, they get powers for sanction, they get a number of, powers under the law. We perhaps if we may not put out a statement for congratulate, for appreciate PPIC, but we need the conversation with the get about how the institutions here unfortunately don't crumble under politics, because this is an issue where you put not just a strongly worded statement, you slam a fine where if other leader between these two leading political parties think of repeating that, then remember say 1, that fine day was heavy, and then 2, they already don't sanction they already don't warn put you on a final warning, right? And I think but the absence of that one day now makes civil society sit down, come together and say, no, we can't let this continue, because the group the way Parliament set up for regulate, not quite say do them work. Why me could they talk about 2023? And because ECSL not do their work fine. If they do their work fine, then they're able for really continue for amplify with democracy and grow with democracy. But because of all them failings here, now they put civil society in the spotlight. Now they make we come together and realize say if we left this space institutions where parliaments don't create, not quite to do their work. Unfortunately, that's what bad governance does to institutions.
But their institution they always set up by an act of parliament, then get the powers where parliament key them.
Yeah.
You say they know they do their work fine. What are some of the issues? Is it that they don't get the space for let them go able for do their work effectively, or Now, them bad politician, they are way you talk about. Now, they don't go inside the institution there and stop them off a function.
No, they don't need for go inside. They just need for appoint their allies and cronies. They don't need to.
But that's the
That quite clearly. I mean, Khadija, let's not.
But some of their institutions
because
are supposed to be independent.
Independent. Now, then the parliament will set them up by the Constitutive Act, say them for being independent. Unfortunately, the appointment processes make it impossible for let them be independent. Because, for example, ECSL, most of them commissioners, you see how the opposition go fet in terms of the nominees them for big commissioners. At the end of the day, the ruling party go merely bulldoze their way for get their young people them. So, I mean, the one way they do computer science, they talk about garbage in, garbage out. So once you get political cronies, political allies, political friends, they occupy them spaces, their institutions now, they become an extension of the ruling party rather than independent bodies where they can serve the interests of the people. So two fundamental things here happen. One, they would not be efficient. They need to serve them purpose. But then fundamentally, the second one, now the fact that then now they perform the duty and the function for politicized institution. So now that make the appointments very critical in democratic process. Very, very critical. Kenya realized this after the 2007 that the elections and violence. So when they pull the new constitution, then shows a critical roles and day where the president just perform ceremonial function. Now, whole body they appoint people like judges them, the chief justice, for example, it's the whole process. They just bring the final list vetted, scrutinized to president and say, "Pana, you get the green ink, you sign." But not so you to go fend and we the fend for you now, we the scrutinizer, we come and you. So with the function where the president they perform, ceremonial. Now that make in Kenya, the president they grab they complain, say the judiciary they do too much and they stop their work. That's the judiciary that is working. Right? By the way, you know, now 5 years ago, now any Supreme Court being convicts me for contempt today. You know, so so I talk about judiciary, I just remember.
Should we say congratulations?
Then the scars of activism. Yeah, but just to your point, that once you do that one day, the institution that they will function, because remember, say, I sit down in the morning and they appoint me. So they will pull me even term. But if you remember, say, I go through process, they interview me, panel discussions, appear before TV, they scrutinize me, they read me judgment, etc., etc. I get independent people always scrutinize me CV, then check out, say not to fake degree, etc., etc. When they appoint me, I'll be comforted that not to by stroke of pen and they pull me. That same process will take long days and weeks. That same process for pull me. But now they see say some man and they appoint. I have stories of people where they appoint them in Dena Kuhibafa. They don't mean no say they appointed. They say, "Pa, they don't call your name." Say, "Nobody don't tell me." Oh. So what do you expect? The man feels say, "Oh, then call me because I aligned." So I'll therefore continue that agenda day. Unfortunately, that is where we find ourselves.
Where this on our list come on critical say this and what's no more than when a dog's back, nothing go change. Because when they call inside on a press release for like political leaders then publicly talk say they want the neutrality of RSLA, for example.
Okay.
And then leaders there when they call for, let we take the instance of the SLPP. Jimmy Batilo Songa making statements where on self concern about. But the same person making statements, people that don't come out, they defend what he say, not to the way how people interpret and they say it mean. How genuine them political party and they expect them for be, if one them come out, can't talk to the public say, they want the neutrality of the RSLA, for example, and the security forces. Where deep within them might they think something differently from waiting on the call for. How for handle that kind of situation?
So maybe for me, I think two fundamental things. One, what we call out the them political parties here, the expectation is they go do the honorable thing. But because society unfortunately is so broken that you don't even expect honorable members them for be honorable anymore, right? For political leaders them for do the honorable thing anymore, right? But one, we want for go on record, say we not let them comment in this slide by, and I want. But also two, one for assure the public, say, we not go hear them statements in there and not remind political parties and say what they do, they against the spirit of a democracy. And they against waiting the TRC been document and they recommend say military personnel and for stay away from a democracy, right? So even though at the end of the day we might not get them political leaders for come forward for apologize because we see the old damage control now, not to that it may mean, and this it may mean, etc., etc. Not to picking away the blab. Now you remember say, oh, look, I interpret with a blab but big man will make a statement, we know them statements and they been clear, right? Unfortunately, the oppositions have played along, right? So we on expectation now that this release will send a message that we would not accommodate political leaders. We want for drum rumors of war or call in anything we feel like a breakdown of peace and security in this country. Because we democracy they are alive because of peace. Because once there's instability in any country, the first thing we will be affected now with governance and with democracy, right?